Hola, estudiantes. Esta clase es la historia de España, the Reconquista of Spain. Let's do it. Let's learn all about the history of Spain. It's a pretty interesting country. Let's deep dive. Ready, set, go. Let's do it. Okay, clicking this button, making it happen. And here we go, Ba-bam. So yeah, this is what we're going to learn about. Muslims and Christians battling out in Spain. There they are fighting all the dang time. And here we go. So the Reconquista is a time period between 722 to 1492 where Christian forces were slowly pushing the Muslims out of Spain. A way you could think about it, this is like a crusade that just went on for 700 years. It is the longest war in the history of the world, but then again, it's not really one big war. It's like there were whole big periods of history where they were kind of peaceful with each other, but it was this just slow push of Christianity taking back Spain from Muslims. All right, let's check it out. So here's a bunch of Muslim guys with guns fighting it out. And here's the first king of Portugal holding the head of the last Muslim king of Portugal. So a whole lot of violence there. Okay, yes, and the Christians were slowly taking back Spain from the Muslims. And because of this, like a whole bunch of these hardcore Christian people would come in from France, from Germany, from Italy, and they would fight the Muslims, and they'd be like, yeah, we're taking over the land for Jesus. And because of that, they're like, every time they took over a piece of land, they made it like hardcore Christianity, okay? But every place they took over, they found a lot of Arabic technology and Arabic learning. So it really was kind of this fusion at the same time of the Arabic world and the Christian world. So much so that the Spanish language actually was created during this big long war period, and about 10% of Spanish words are actually Arabic words. So that's pretty cool. Also, lots of Spanish food came from Arabic culture. The guitar came from Arabic culture. That's a pretty big part of Spanish culture today. So it's just interesting to see kind of the cultural connections from the Muslim world and the Christian world, which resulted in the culture of Spanish. So it's important to know that and be aware of it. Yeah, hasta is an Arabic word. There's so many Arabic words that are also Spanish. Kind of cool. All right, so here's the history of the Reconquista. So the orange lands are Muslim, the white lands are Christian, and as time goes on, the Christians push them out, and they take over the whole dang place in 1492. All right, so rather than me teach all these individual wars and all these various kingdoms fighting it out, I decided that the best way to teach the Reconquista is the life story of this one guy, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar. He lived about 1,000 years ago, and he was his name Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar. That's his real name, but history remembers him by this name, El Cid Campeador. And simply that name shows you sort of the cultural fusion around this guy. El Cid means the general in Arabic, and Campeador means the champion in Spanish. So this guy's kind of a fusion of both worlds. He was a knight in service to Castile. Castile was a Christian kingdom in the north of Spain. He's probably the most famous guy in Spanish history, and probably out of all the characters in world history, this is the guy I would just love to give a high five to, and I would just hang out with this dude all day. Top tier dude. Okay, and I'll tell you this, even though the next slides are red, I really want you to know this story for the next test. There will be some loose questions on it, but maybe you don't need to know every step of the story. Just definitely open up your mind and learn all about this El Cid guy. Okay, so here's who we're going to learn about, El Cid. El Cid was this fantastic warrior from Castile, and he had this awesome horse named Babieca. Oh, I could even just talk about his horse for days, too. And he fought nobly for the kingdom of Castile for years. I think for like 20 years he was a knight, and by all accounts he was a really, really good warrior in the battlefield. He fought countless duels and won like every single one of them. His horse Babieca was supposedly this amazing horse that never got tired, that could ride for hours. And he fought against the Muslim kingdoms in Spain. They're collectively known as the Moors. and he was especially famous for his honor in combat. El Cid, he never did like sneak attacks. He always sort of challenged people in the open combat, and he, would honor when the Muslims would surrender and they would ride away. He like wouldn't chase them down and capture or kill them. He was a dude who earned everyone's respect for being honest and for not doing anything super sneaky. So, and eventually there came a point where he was sort of so well renowned on the battlefield that sometimes when Muslim armies would simply see El Cid and his horse carrying his big flag, the Muslim armies would just like immediately retreat because they're like, dude, we can't beat this guy. He's too strong. He's too good. And I think the story goes that he killed like 1,000 of Muslim soldiers in sort of one-on-one challenge combat. He was just unbeatable. So high five to this guy for his combat skills. And you see sort of the map of Spain right here, that the northern kingdoms of Spain are all Christian and the southern kingdoms at this time are all Muslim. So there's this big constant battle going on between these two countries, or these two cultural groups in the middle of Spain. So checking it out. Okay, but now this is where the story gets weird. So El Cid loved his king. He loved Sancho by all accounts. But what happened in the middle of the night one night, Sancho got assassinated. And El Cid vowed revenge for his king. And Sancho, he didn't have any sons, so the throne of Castile passed over to King Alfonso, Sancho's brother. And a lot of people were kind of suspicious that Alfonso might have had something to do with his brother's death. So El Cid publicly challenged Alfonso and said, prove to us that you had nothing to do with Sancho's death. And Alfonso, he famously gets in front of this big crowd of people, puts his hand on a Bible, swears to God that he had nothing to do with his brother's death. And El Cid sort of forgave him and said, yes, I will serve you, King Alfonso. History later sort of researched into this, and we found Alfonso's private diaries, and Alfonso did kill his brother. Alfonso did kill Sancho. Alfonso lied when he put his hand on the Bible, and Alfonso was so angry at El Cid for calling him out in public, even though, yes, he was a liar. Alfonso expelled El Cid from the kingdom. Alfonso said, El Cid, I don't want you to be my general. I want you to leave Castile and never, ever, ever come back. So El Cid gets on Babieca. He rides out of Castile, never to return. And the question is, where is the best knight in all of Spain going to go to find a new job and find a new kingdom? So, and there's El Cid riding out. Now, this is where the story just gets so interesting, because the Muslim kings who El Cid had fought against for years heard that El Cid was now kind of like a mercenary for hire, and so the Muslim kingdoms reached out to him and said, hey, come and, be our general, fight for us. And El Cid says, well, I'm really good at fighting. I'm not going to, become a Muslim, but sure, I'll lead your guys and I'll keep your kingdom defensible. And he also said, I never want to fight Castile. I'll fight the other Christian kingdoms, but Castile is my old homeland. I'm a knight. I'm committed to that. And the Muslim kings are like, sure, no doubt. So, they hire him, and he leads Muslim armies for the next 5 years or so, and they pay him big money. And now it's the opposite. Like, El Cid is riding with his banner in front of these Muslim armies, and Christian guys come to battles, and they're like, oh crap, El Cid's there, we're just going to quit. So it's kind of cool how kind of the roles flipped and reversed there. So El Cid is now leading the Muslims. He's fighting for both sides. Cool. So there's Cid and Babieca again, and now leading Muslims in a battle. Okay. Now, after about 5 years of serving the Muslim kingdoms, El Cid had racked up a lot of money. Like, El Cid charged a premium for his mercenary services. And El Cid raised so much money, he actually bought an entire city from one of the Muslim kings. And this city was kind of right in like the borderlands between the Muslim kingdoms and the Christian kingdoms. And it's the city of Valencia. And it's still a big city in Spain today. And El Cid said, okay, I'm going to buy this city and I'm going to be the king of this city. And because I now have all these Muslim friends and I had my old Christian friends from my time fighting with Castile, I'm going to create this one kind of neutral city in the middle of Spain that'll be a place for all religions to kind of work together, and it'll sort of be this peaceful holdout in the middle of this country that's constantly at war. And this is the part that I just love El Cid for doing that. For him to create this religiously open city is super duper duper cool. And there are statues of El Cid all over America. I personally know of 3 of them. You can see that statue right there, him riding Babieca by the San Francisco Bridge. So it's this idea of him creating this free society in an otherwise society full of war that I thought was so cool. So, boom, there's El Cid living it up. All right, but now here's the end of the story. So, a few years into him being the king of Valencia, El Cid's now kind of an older guy at this point, a massive Muslim invasion army from North Africa gets to Spain, and they're on this jihad to take back the entirety of Spain for Islam. And as they're marching through the Muslim kingdoms, well, the first place they get to is the free city of Valencia. And the Muslim kingdoms demand that El Cid surrender the city. They demand that he, force everyone in the city to convert to Islam. And El Cid's like, nope, not having it. So they start fighting each other. And El Cid, he calls up his friends from his whole life experience. He has Muslims that start fighting for him. He calls the Christian kingdoms that fight for him. And they have these big epic battles outside the city of Valencia. And the story goes that on the 3rd day, El Cid was riding Babieca in battle, fighting people off, and he's now kind of an older guy, so he doesn't have the same skill and prowess that he had in his youth. But in the middle of that big fight, an arrow hits El Cid in the chest. El Cid gets taken away. The doctors try to heal him in his chambers, but El Cid bleeds out and El Cid dies. Okay, so that's really rough. But the doctors, El Cid's generals, and his wife, they talk about it, and they're like, what should we do? If the people of Valencia hear that El Cid is dead, then the whole city will fall apart. The Muslims and the Christians will fight each other. But then El Cid's wife has this idea. She says, don't tell anyone he's dead, because if we have maybe one more day of fighting, we might beat this Muslim army. So El Cid's wife takes his dead body and puts the dead body on top of Babieca. They kind of strap his legs and his torso so he doesn't slunch over too much. And then the next day, they dress El Cid up in his whole body armor, so he's kind of like hiding his dead face. And Babieca, all by herself, wanders around the city, and they also like sort of forced El Cid's banner to get held up by his dead hand. And the people say, oh, hey, look, there's El Cid. He's going to ride out and fight the Muslims again. We're going to join him. And so this dead body guy Babieca all by herself rides him to the front of the gates, and then El Cid's army is trailing behind him. They open up the gates, and Babieca charges out against the Muslims. And these Muslim guys outside, they shoot like 100 arrows into El Cid's body, and because he's kind of strapped in there, El Cid doesn't fall down. The Muslim guys freak out, say El Cid's invincible, even though he's already dead. And the Christian and Muslim team rides out of Valencia. They chase off the North African army, and they win the day. So even in death, El Cid wins. What a boss. So, yeah. Huge respect for this guy. Keeping a free world. Okay, so there's the dead body of El Cid charging in the battle. There they are fighting it out. And there he is, the Campeador. So that's kind of what the whole Reconquista is about, I think. Okay, so then when we get towards the end of the Reconquista, this is when the Christian team is like super winning and they're about to take over the whole country. And starting in 1480, and this went on for 300 years, the hardcore Christians of this newly conquered Spain, they do something called the Inquisition. And this is where they find all the people who are not Christians. They find the Muslims and the Jews of Spain, and they torture the heck out of them. And they say, convert to Christianity, or we're going to put you through unbelievable physical pain. And a lot of these people didn't convert, and a lot of these people died. And the Spanish kings, they found where these people lived, they took over their property, they took all their money, and now they're going to have a whole bunch of money. And they've got to do something with that money. So they're now super duper rich because they've basically stolen it from everyone who isn't a Christian. So they are torturing people, you know. Will you become a Christian? No, I won't. Oh, this is painful. Okay, and then there they are hurting people. It's super duper messed up. It's the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, yes, and by the end of this Inquisition, there were virtually no Muslims or Jews left in Spain. A lot of them fled Spain to escape all these crazy hardcore Christian people that were obsessed about their religion and nothing else. So this is also kind of one more thing to add into the struggles of being a Jewish person in world history. They really don't have it easy. So here's a bunch of Jewish guys getting burned alive. It's super rude. Okay, so once now Spain is under full Christian control, they've kicked out all the Muslims and Jews, they've stolen all their stuff. The Spanish king and queen, they have a lot of money. They got money to spare. And an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus approaches the King of Spain and says, hey, I've got this idea that we can sail west and go all the way to China. If we get to China, we can trade there and I can make you a lot more money. Can you provide me with funding so I can launch an expedition to prove my theory? The Spanish king, he accepted, but he said, Columbus, once you get to China, we want you to teach the people there all about Christianity. And if those people don't want to learn Christianity, well, I'm prepared to use violence to make them learn. And Columbus accepted this idea, and wherever he would end up going, he would bring the ideas of the Reconquista and the Inquisition with him. And as we know, Columbus never got to China, he got here. And that's a big part of how this history will influence the history of the world. All right, that's it for me. Let me just click these few pictures here. And cool. Peace out.